Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to wearefree.tv, the channel that brings you different people from around the world that discuss and talk about the various interesting subjects to do with the higher dimensions, with the fifth dimension, with the expansion of consciousness, with the free man on the land, Strawman, common law, different ways to deal with the draconian system that we are subjects of for a long time, and bringing about the change that we all want so much, and many other subjects to do with spirituality, religion, etc. So if you wish to be interviewed on wearefree.tv, no problem at all. All you need to do is contact me on nocensorshiptv@gmail.com. Also, I'll highly appreciate if you can join our Telegram group, which is shown down here, wearefree.tv on Telegram. And of course, it would be amazing if you could share this interview with your family and friends so they can also enjoy this amazing content that is coming your way today from my guest, who is Mr. Henrik-Kromann Jensen, and he is a native-born Danish state national man. The name of our interview today is What is Law and Why is it Important to Know? We're going to talk about the Strawman, status correction, UCC, common law, sovereignty, heritage, and much more. So hello there, Henrik-Kromann Jensen. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm good.
Nice. And hello, my friend Schwingster, helping me once again. How are you?
Hello. I'm okay.
Excellent. Same here. So gentlemen, we have a very interesting subject here, and I would like to, perhaps Henrik, you could give us like a general introduction as to who you are and how you ended up doing what it is that you're doing these days.
Absolutely, yes. Well, I'm a Danish man. I was born here. I'm 56 years old now. And I basically have an electronics engineering degree, and I have a background of 20 years as an IT consultant. So I've been around many places. I've lived in the United States, and I've lived most of my life here. And I have done big IT projects and middle and smaller ones for governments, insurance, mostly banking. And always kind of been a little bit that, up against the system, something isn't right. And that has gone on for years, and I've had some measures of success. But in 2018, I came across a man called David Wynn-Miller, David-Wynn-Miller. And he was introducing a concept called quantum grammar. And of course, I had an engineering degree, and I also have a programming background, so I knew about syntax in programming language, and I knew how to build things and how to make them work. So that's been what I've been doing since childhood, really. And he started catching my attention when he talked about math and grammar, because grammar had always been super boring for me. And then I dug into it, and I found out that there was actually something here. And he had a course called Tricks and Traps, and that really shut me off in the direction of law and who we are and what is our heritage and what is this all about. Wow. So that's how it all began. And so I actually taught myself the quantum grammar, and I did my first live claim and wrote that in quantum grammar myself. I also made a CPAS, and I used those documents ever since about 2019.
Okay, well, there's already a few questions that spring up. What is that? You just said that you've done two things. The first one was what?
What the problem that I found out was that we are not properly identified in the system. We are only identified through a birth certificate, which someone else wrote and a parent signed for. But there was no actual identification of us as a living being. And the live claim is a document that claims you are a live-born man or woman, and where you were born, and by human parents, and their names, and with witnesses, and a photograph, and some DNA on that document. So that identifies and establishes who you are in terms of identity.
So what have you actually done? Because I hear so many people who talk about the theory But no one has actual success. So what exactly did you do? What is the result of what you did?
I did this document here,
Yeah.
which is a quantum grammar flag. I put my data here. I had some witnesses also that did the same. And by that, we had now physical evidence of who we are.
So what?
And so now we can identify who we are. We are not a thing. We're not cargo. We're living beings.
Yeah, but have you used it? If you send it to
yes, I have.
How?
Yes, I used it many times, actually. The first time I used it was in the courts in Denmark in 2019. And in Denmark, we get a lot of tickets and fines, and the people is heavily taxed. We're one of the highest taxed people in the world, including sales taxes, like 25% on top of that. So I got some parking tickets, and I ended up in court with those. And I flashed this document, and I was thrown out of court, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times in 1 year.
Is that a good thing?
And all traces of that case disappeared.
Really?
That's I knew amazing. I was onto something here.
So when you say I was thrown out, can you please be more specific? You came into the courthouse, the judge said, would Mr. Henrik-Kromann please stand up? And you went like this, and he said, get out of my courthouse?
The first one was they came out to the hallway. It wasn't really the court, it was the bailiff's office. And just said the name, and I didn't respond. And then they said it again, and I said, I'm here about that case. And so they opened it. They did not ask who I was. So I handed the bailiff the document and asked me to please wait outside. And then came back outside and said, we have reconvened the court meeting. So I showed up and I could leave again.
So what do you think they thought when they saw that? What was the problem? I mean, how was that a spanner in the works in their system?
Well, in the beginning, I didn't know very much about why, but I could definitely see there was a difference because I had done those kind of cases before, like a year or 2 years before. So I was like, something's going on. I wasn't quite sure what, but then I find out about how they can only deal in things and not living beings. So it says life claim. So there's no doubt that what this is. And so 6 months later, or 4, 5, 6 months later, I was called in again for another case that had been lying for a long time. And I came in again and I did the same thing. And I came into the room, there was a lawyer sitting there, and I said, I have something for you. And she said she wasn't touching anything. Because the minute she grabs it, she's making a joinder with me.
Who? Their lawyer? The plaintiff? Okay. But the people who were against you, who were suing you, you didn't come with a lawyer, obviously, yourself.
No, that was the one, it was an attorney company had sent a lawyer. And this was a bailiff scenario. So the bailiff called me in. The attorney was sitting waiting in there for the other party.
Yeah.
And so I guess he must have, or it must have circled around that, you don't grab papers because then they are going in on my terms.
Okay. So you went with to the lawyer with the paper, but they said, no, I don't want to touch it.
No, I gave the paper to the bailiff.
Uh-huh.
Because the bailiff is responsible for identifying the parties that come into the office.
So then what happened?
So I said, I'm here about this case. And then I put the paper on the table. And then the attorney and the bailiff was talking. And then she asked me to wait outside. And then the same thing happened. I was sent back home.
Right. And the case was closed.
And I didn't hear more from that case.
So let's think what happened. So let's imagine we are them now talking, holding the paper, looking at it and going to each other, well, we have to cancel this because look what he's given us. I mean, now there's a problem now. We can't do anything with him. What do you think they were saying to each other?
I really don't know. I was just really having a good time with the result.
Okay. Fair enough. So let's move on to other topics. Yeah. What esoteric discipline and practices are you trained in?
Okay, so as a young man, I was always curious about how things worked. So in 1989, I met a group of people that was into studying, the bigger issues of life. And they were a little truth-seeking group that was basically talking about the esoteric and an esoteric view on the world, which is that everything has an external and middle and an internal part to it. And the whole thing, if you're familiar with a man called Mark Passio, he has made a video series on natural law and the occult. And that is basically a lot about, his material is very good. And it's very much what I myself was taught how to study natural law. The law of nature is the way of nature. And that's also why the quantum grammar became so interesting, because the rules of math is really what governs what is written down on your paper because of the grammar.
Okay.
So if you have 1 plus 2, that equals 3, but 1 times 0 equals 0, or anything multiplied or divided by 0 makes 0. So how you can void an entire sentence with putting a 0 in there. So that was an order here, that was a structure. And that's really all about finding those answers in natural law, because math, as you know, is based on natural law.
Okay. So you keep saying quantum grammar, but I don't see it appearing in any of our questions. I'm wondering whether we should give some time, devote some time to understand.
I believe quantum grammar is the connection also with, I believe, esoteric. It's like spell. What I get from all this issue of speaking with the dead or dealing to the people as something lost at sea, as you know what I mean, like a chefetz,
object,
like an object of the system. And the difference between the living man with what you have the life claim is showing you are a living man. You're speaking as a living, and therefore the company or the corporation cannot speak with you. That's why they send you away. My question in the quantum grammar is, well, my understanding is that they communicate with spell working on pieces of paper to the people, and the people believe that they are who are being talked to by the system.
The way I understood it from the author, which is Dave Miller, he discovered this idea, and he found out that this language deception has been going on for thousands of years. So our ancestors had kind of the same problem. And something indicates in history that there was a small group of people that had the knowledge and the masses didn't. So one example I can give you, a very, very simple, short introduction to quantum grammar, is the negation of words, or rather the prefixes and suffixes of words can negate the meaning of the root word. So if I say to you, let's investigate. Well, if you take IN and put in front of a word, you can find the word like incompetent, insolvent, insufficient. All means no. It all means no to the root word. So that's how any word that is being used in law has these prefixes and also suffixes that actually void the word. So when the judge that knows about this, and according to David Wynn Miller, the top of the judges knew about this, and they all had a claim of life, just like this. When they would read what you write to them, and they can see that you're using all the words where you're saying no all the time, you're not saying anything. So when you come into court and you think you're talking to them, you're not saying anything, because they have the knowledge of what words mean that are written down.
No, I don't get it. What's the point of all this? Why would you want to write a word that cancels itself?
To deceive the people of the world that the small group wants to control the bigger group.
But what do you mean? I mean, you gave an example of insufficient.
Yes.
So obviously there's the word sufficient, which is the root word, as you say, and in.
Yes.
negates the sufficient. So it's not sufficient. Okay?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
okay, but I don't understand. I'm expecting you to say something where they use it because they send you a letter which basically might, for example, you can say, hello, Mr. Bloom, you are a very nice person and we want to give you $5,000. And actually, when I'm reading this, I'm like, yay, they're going to give me $5,000. But actually, if I knew how to read quantum grammar, I would realize that it says, actually, you have to pay us $5,000 and we're going to put you in jail for 5,000 years. I don't know. I'm trying to understand. Obviously, it's a stupid example, but maybe you can give something more that we can relate
yes,
to.
I can try. If I say 1, 2 equals 3, you're going to say that doesn't make sense.
1,
There's
2,
something
12,
missing.
as if 12 equals 3?
Exactly. There's something missing between two
plus.
facts.
Plus.
That's the operator, yes. So if the operator is missing in that equation, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so each sentence has to have facts in there. So what the smart people knew, that because of the rules of math and the rules of nature, they can manipulate the language so that you're not actually writing or saying anything. But you and I, we can decide, it says you're going to have 5,000, but that's only because you and me, we agree on that. A third party, a judge, doesn't have to agree to that. Unless we say words as they are facts, and they are facts according to the laws of nature, you're not saying anything.
So who uses the quantum grammar? The people like yourself who know about it and they deal with the courts using quantum grammar? Or does the court use quantum grammar and the system uses quantum grammar when they send you a parking fine and things like that?
No, every time you receive something, let's say you receive a speeding ticket, notice how they write things. Everything that you write on a piece of paper is a publication. And you can find a manual called the Styles Manual that says how you have to write stuff on a piece of paper and what it means. So if they put 5,000 is defined and they put it in a box and they give you the paper. Anything in a box is not part of the document. It's just a fraud. And you think that's the amount that you have to pay, but it's in the box, so it's not part of the document.
Yes.
So that's how they deceive you. So you think, oh, I better pay 5,000 or I'm going to get in trouble. But they didn't say anything. If you took their document and you disqualified the document,
I see. So let's say I don't pay, then they send me another document saying you didn't pay and then again 5,000 in a box, and I still don't pay. But eventually they send the bailiffs round to knock on my door and take away my TV. So is that also quantum grammar when the bailiff is knocking on your door?
No, but what I found out is that if I repeat doing the same thing, voiding their documents, eventually they're going to stop coming around because now they know that you know.
I see. Okay, that's clearer. So let's continue.
So that's kind of one explanation to it. So
is there another
really
one?
what we need to do is we need to put on a paper our facts. And what the quantum grammar life claim is, it puts the facts down that I'm a living man, but it does it grammatically correct. So they can't say that there's nothing on this paper because they know the same rules. And according to the author of this, all the high court judges, they have one like this, and they are all trained in quantum grammar. It took me a long time, but I actually started finding evidence that it is a fact because I can see in different writings, publications, or quotes from high judges that they are aware of how to remove the negation of their word. So let's say you want to write the word incompetent. You take the IN and you put it in italic, or you put it in squares so it's not part of the document. And that just looks like fancy stuff, but really they just void that part. Like with the box, with the 5,000, they can void that.
I see. Okay, very interesting indeed.
It's kind of like reading code, and I have a lot of training reading code, especially computer code.
Yeah.
So these are some of the tools that the elites are using to deceive us into thinking that we own nothing and we are nothing and we have nothing.
Yeah.
Which comes to the whole theme of this this interview, which is what is law and why is it important?
Yes. So what is your experience with the occult, law, legal fiction, and strawman?
Well, my example right now with the IN is actually an occult science because it's hidden, but it's hidden right in front of your face and you don't see it. So it is occulted.
Mm-hmm.
It's hidden for your eyes because you see incompetent and you think that means incompetent, but it's actually saying something else. So we have to train ourselves to know and find out these ways of removing things from the page. So let's say you receive let's say a tax statement, and the amount that you owe is in a box. Then you don't owe them anything. But
what about writing back to them? I know I heard that it's very important to write back and not to ignore it, because if you ignore it, you're going to get in trouble. But if you write back, you won't. Exactly.
Yeah. So what you do is you take their paper and you make a red circle, and then you make an arrow, and then you say anything in a box is not to be considered. See Styles Manual, this and this, and send it back to them. Now you have given closure to them and their fraud, and they've been caught out. So they have no claim.
Yeah. Okay. So we said occult, law, legal, fiction, strawman. Maybe it's the same thing, legal fiction and strawman, isn't it?
Well, if you grab your driver's license, it's actually a document. It's a contract. There is several things on that document. There is your name, and your name is the corporation that they made. Then there is a picture of the living man. Then there is a signature which authorizes and gives joinder to this contract. Because you think you need a license to drive on the road. You don't. There is no law anywhere that says you must have a license.
Do you have a license?
No, I used to have one, but no, I don't drive with a license because I'm not a taxi driver, I'm not an Uber driver, and I don't drive commercially. I drive privately. And there is so many cases and there's so much material available that says man has the right to travel. And one good example of that is I have my passport now, which is my own passport, and it's the World Citizen Passport that came into the world in 1954. I actually did an interview with the man who's making those right now. It looks like a normal passport, but there's no social security number on here. Mm-hmm. And it is approved in 192 countries. On their website, you can find stamps of this passport being used by every country in the world. Stamps from Sweden, Norway, Denmark. So in here, this passport is come to life because of a Universal Declaration of Human Rights just after the war in the United Nations that says you have a right to travel anywhere in the world you want. And there's also an International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights from 1966, actually, where it says that you have a right to travel and you have a right to choose. The first article of that covenant is you have a right to choose your own political status.
So have you traveled with this passport ever to another country?
Actually, no. I was traveling, but I only had one myself. I have my daughter. She had the Danish passport, and I didn't want to, mix it up. But I have used it to open bank accounts. I have used it in any other kind of context. So really? Yes.
And what did the bank say? What is this passport? Did they accept it?
No, they didn't ask. They say, send me a copy of your passport. And I sent the passport, and they said, we need another confirmation of address. And I send them, I don't know, receipt for my car or something. And then.
So, question. So the bank, which is another corporation, accept a living being document. How does this work?
I don't know how the bank works, but I can say how this works. And using this as any state passport and using it when they ask for your credentials hasn't failed for me. When we had the Corona lockdown, there was some issues. This wasn't a real passport. And that's because technically you don't have a contract with the state. So if I want as a Danish man to cross into Sweden, they can say, but you don't have a contract with Sweden because you don't have a Danish passport. So there are exceptions to the rules, but the laws are very, very clear. And when we talk law, that's the opposite of legal. Legal is a fictional construct, just like children. They play a game, they make their own rules. If you go outside these rules, you can't be in the game. That's what legal fiction is. It's a children's game. It's imaginary rules and laws. It's all imaginary, including the money. Every court case has a penal sum. Okay? Somebody's got to get paid. It's always the lawyers and the judges. It's never the plaintiffs. So that's, again, even the money we're using is not real money. Take any paper money bill from anywhere in the world and look at it. I have Danish kroner. It doesn't say Danish kroner. It just says kroner. And in legal terms or lawful terms, it has to state on the instrument what it is. Otherwise, it could be Swedish kroners, Norwegian kroners, kroners in your teeth, kroners like a king. It doesn't say what kroners. So I can assume it's anything. So the money paper that we have is all what's called legal tender. And it's actually a fiction. And it's not money. It means a legal tender, and it means this amount is deferred to a later point in time.
Yeah.
That's another fraud played in plain sight. And you want an example of the occult? That's an example of the occult, because that's hidden to our eyes. And we look at the money and we think, yeah, this is money. I can go and buy cakes for this.
Okay.
It's not.
Fair enough. Interesting. So did you say, you didn't say anything about the Strawman? I mean, the birth certificate and all that, maybe just in a nutshell, because we all heard about it so many times already.
Right. So the Strawman is really your name that is on this license that I told you. And then they also put an account with your name, which you call your social security number. That is a bank account number. And we actually found out that it's a Federal Reserve account. And some people found the routing numbers and wrote the routing numbers and wrote 5,000 on a piece of paper, put it into an ATM, and 5,000 got into their account. Just from writing the routing number and the account number and the amount, and the machine credited to your account 5,000. So we know it's a bank account.
Yeah.
So that is a account that is used by the system to pay for everything, or rather make it look like you're paying for things with these money that don't exist. I started in 2013 with a friend of mine. We were so fed up, we wanted to create our own bank. So we started researching back in 2009 the money system, and we came up with this. Something is not right here. How is money made? So we did a group called Positive Money. They were also out of the UK. And we started as a study group, and we found out all this stuff, and this really came into public domain, that even the schools, the universities of Copenhagen, started teaching that money was made out of thin air.
Really?
Even the teachers, and even they went to the Danish National Bank and had a introduction, was taken around, showing the facility. And the man working there that was taking the students around, he actually said to them, yes, we know that they make money out of nothing, but we don't know how.
Okay.
That was something we set in motion there because of what we found out, and we started, spreading this to the different groups of politics and
so is that about the private? Is that your private nation currency insolvency? What you just said?
No, no. coming further up the line.
I see.
So what I find out is that this legal stuff is not real. So we have to find out the real facts. Like we need to write the documents as facts. When I have a document where my facts are written in correct grammar, you can't just imagine that to not be there. So I think that's the reason why I was escorted out. The fourth time that year, I was asked to leave the building, or I would be escorted out with the security detail.
Amazing. Okay, so what is status correction?
Okay, so we came back to this idea that we are not identified correctly in the system. And we are not taught anything in school about law. The first time we come into contact with law is when we either need a bank account because we're going to do some work and we're going to make money, or we're going to have a driver's license. So that's the first time we open a bank account, we sign papers that we are citizen. And of course, the bank takes advantage of that. So now you get yourself in trouble because you signed something you don't know because nobody taught you about law or legal fiction. So the next thing you do is you meet a girlfriend, boyfriend, you buy a house, you have children together, you buy cars, everything is all in this legal fiction that you're now into. So we have to find out what is law. And law is really natural law. And out of that, you can say comes common law, common sense. Our ancestors were onto this also. And the law is really not something that is written down. It's like I gave you the example, math is not really written down anywhere, but we know the rules of math. So our rights, we are born with rights that cannot be taken from us. They are living rights. They come from the same living divine source as we do. And that law, that fact lives in us. That's where real law comes from. And it really, it's in the Bible, in Genesis chapter 1, 26 to 28, that we are given dominion of the earth. And we are in chapter 2:7, we become a living soul. And from there on, it really states what is our rights and what is our laws. And what I found out recently is that the Bible, the King James Version, for example, became public law and public domain in 1982 under President Ronald Reagan. And 1983 became the year of the Bible.
Okay.
So Genesis in the Bible is really a trust indenture, giving man dominion of the earth, owning it by birthright, by the fact of our creation, by whatever created us. It's written down, and it's the fact. This is our inheritance from our ancestors. So what I also did is I did myself a certificate of nativity of my DNA. And that proves that my ancestors walked this earth 270,000 years ago. So that was long before government. So the DNA I have in my body vessel is that old, and it comes out of the earth. So that's law, that's fact. And that's what they don't want us to find out. That's what they don't want us to know.
So what is
they
status
want to come
correction?
with a legal fiction. Well, so in their system, they put that you are this property of the state. It's also called a ward of state. It's an ancient Roman doctrine called parens patriae. And because your parents signed your birth certificate, you became a ward of state. So that's what is written in their documents, in their system. So when you come with your passport and you show them your passport, well, you're a ward of state. You have to correct that in the system because it's a mistake. And it's a mistake made by your parents because they didn't know better. And it's also a fraud, so you can just rescind your consent by the fact that it's a fraud. That's your status correction.
And how do you do it?
What you do is you write an affidavit and you state in there, and you can put, because we are cargo, technically, we cannot make claims. Only living things can make claims. So the first thing we need to do is make a claim of life. With the claim of life, now you can make claims. Because here's proof, certified, that you are living.
Yeah. So then what?
So when you go into a court now, and this is another thing I found out, when you go into court and you make a claim with this one, you can actually make a claim. They can't ignore it because living things can claim things.
Shrinkster, you were saying something?
Yeah, so step one is getting that life claim actualized, to have it. So what do I need to do? Do I need to go to this Scottish common law court and do it there? Or so you have an American flag. We're in Israel. What do we do?
You don't need to register anything, because that's giving your property away. So what you do is you create this. The state created your birth certificate. You didn't create it. So they own it, because there's a maxim in law that says he who creates something controls and owns it. So because I create this, and this is the flag that means that Quantum Grammar is controlling this vessel.
It looks like an American flag.
It used to be the American, it's called 1 to 1.9 flag. It was claimed by this man, David Wynn Miller, in 1999 when the US came out of its bankruptcy and they vacated United States, Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And he went in and he got the actual patent written in Babel, and he wrote one in Quantum Grammar instead and claimed the flag in that way.
Yeah, we saw a YouTube video about that. It was mind-blowing what he did. It
is. So this is the only language flag in the world. It's not a country flag.
Okay.
But this flag doesn't have its own country. And its country is any courtroom at the time of contract. That's the land of this flag.
Right. So you create this document, you stick the flag, but then where do I get the text for this statement, for this claim? Is there like a template somewhere?
There was a template on David Wynn Miller's website, but because I learned what he was teaching and he wanted people to learn it and not just copy it, he put mistakes in his template on his website on purpose, so you wouldn't just plagiarize it and copy it. So I actually created my own according to the rules of the grammar that he put into his book, which is a booklet like this. And this is the actual constitution of the language. And it has David Wynn Miller's autograph on it. And so I have that book, and I can use those rules in this to create this. And I have a C pass also that allows me to pass in C of space. Look at this. Also
unbelievable. I've never seen anyone as advanced as you are ever on these subjects.
We're looking at a free man.
Yeah.
Well, like I told you, I had an engineering background. I actually created the first chip card. You remember we got a chip on our credit cards.
Yeah.
The first chip code in this one, I created that in Denmark back in 1998.
Shame on you.
And I didn't know better at that time, but I actually designed the code in this chip. It's a highly advanced chip with crypto coprocessor of 1100 bytes or bits. So I created that. So I'm used to reading lots of information. I'm used to creating technical documentation.
That doesn't help us. That only shows us how far behind we are. And you need to be a scientist like you and a mathematician and a computer programmer to be able to get to free yourself from the system.
Well, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm being interviewed by you to help you guys out.
Absolutely. So let's say people who watch this will want to actually, can you guide people? If I said to you, look, I would like to do this in Israel, can you help us out? Can you just guide us through the process somehow? And we promise to try hard and to put a lot of effort into it, but still, our brains are like half the size of yours, so we would appreciate a bit of help as and when necessary.
Actually, it's not that difficult, but what I found out, because we're taught so many things from school, from media, parents, it takes time for this material and this information to actually manifest in you. So I spent about 2.5 years finding out how am I gonna address this problem, because I'm an engineer. I address problems. This is what I do. And I came up with so I'm doing an online course, and people can sign up, and it's actually a 12-month commitment. And we all start with this one because then we can contract as living men or living man, woman. And then I take you through a step and process of slowly where to begin, how to get into this. I teach quantum grammar. I teach the syntax. I teach how to disqualify documents. I teach also the sentence structure so you can end up writing your own document. But in the beginning, we used a template that I created so we can start up as equal because you can't contract unless you're an equal.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so I teach this, and I also have a BitChute channel where I have different interviews. This one is going to be included. And I talk about this. And what I also encourage anyone to do is to not give up. Because we are coming from a culture where we are used to instant results and satisfaction. And this takes time. It's taken me 5 years to get here.
Okay.
So have patience with yourself and don't hammer yourself over the head.
Yeah, of course.
There are lots of us right now. In terms of common law, we are a group of people in Denmark now that is working with an international group. And in terms of addressing common law, it's very simple. You need 100 people from your area, get together and write a claim and all sign it. And now you have a common law court that you can start. And then you need to educate and train 12 people. So you have a grand jury. And that grand jury can actually judge. Judges cannot judge, because they will be using common law, and not legal fiction.
Okay, that's advanced stuff. Let's start with the claim of life.
Yeah,
and in the meantime,
so this is a private document. You don't register this anywhere. So when you write a claim to a court or someone who is coming after you, you put a copy of this and then your paperwork, because this proves that you can make claim in law.
Yeah.
And then they can't ignore it. So
that's a powerful thing to have. I mean, if somebody's watching this and saying, yeah, okay, so what if Henrik has his own passport and his own life claim, and he has a driving license and all these other statements and the certificate you showed, so what? How does it help him? Okay, so it helped him with his speeding tickets, where he was thrown out of court together with his speeding tickets. That's not bad. What else?
I drive my own automobile that I own myself. It's not registered to the state because then you give it up to the state and then they own it. You get the right to drive it.
Have you ever been stopped by a cop and you showed him everything and he was like, yeah, go ahead, keep driving?
No, actually once I was stopped, but I don't have a license plate like the one from the state.
What do you have on your license plate?
Actually, what I did is I took my automobile. I don't have a car because that's a commercial instrument. So I drive an automobile or travel in an automobile, and I bought it and I made the receipt myself, and I then published it in the common law court of the UK because I used to work with the people there a couple of years back, and also used their system back then, but I'm using my own system now. So I have published the automobile there because it needs to be published in public domain in case there's an accident. So it's not, you can find out where it has homestead, and it has homestead in another country. And then I have that number from that document is on my license plate. And I've been driving this for 1 year now, and I've only been stopped once. And I was wearing this as I do when I'm out, especially it was around Corona time, lockdown. And they asked me, so what was this? And I said, this is my C-Pass. I'm the postmaster of the C-Pass because I have my gold certificate stamp sitting here that I have autographed. And so they looked at it and didn't know what to do. So they called up, the dispatch and said, "We have a postmaster here. We don't know what to do." And like 10 seconds later, they were told, "Just leave it." And then they were called out to something else.
Unbelievable. Okay.
I'm driving the roads here. I'm driving around the country here, and I haven't been stopped.
Yeah, but I have a friend.
If I do, I will educate them.
Yes, the thing is that maybe it's yes, Shringster.
That's what you offer to do once one does this life claim and is have the documents of a living being, and now he gets caught by a corporation agents. Yeah. So what you offer to do is once he has this, establish this documentation to educate them.
Exactly.
This
I
is
want
the
to show you something.
communication.
Yeah. Now that we talk about it, I want to show you something, because many people talk a lot of talk. I don't teach theory. I teach what I know. I teach firsthand knowledge, and I don't make claims that I cannot back up by documentation. So let me show you a very simple example of proof that what I'm saying is you don't need a driver's license to drive. Yep. I knew we were coming to this, so I kept this document ready here. So if you could let me share the screen, just come spend.
I didn't know that you were going to share screen, and I have to prepare for it.
Okay.
So I don't know. Share guest screen. You want to share your screen?
I got it here.
Let's see if I can do that. Yep. Here you go.
All right. this is a PDF that is publicly available, and it's from the Arizona State Senate. And you can see this is December 10, 1985.
Yep.
And Wayne Stump is the name of the state senator. And I'm going to show you this text, and I'm just going to get your attention to the second paragraph here. I think people can go back and read this.
That, because many law enforcement personnel
Yes.
that may be unaware of
Exactly. Let's start at the top. It has come to my attention. It has come to my attention that numerous individuals in our state have rescinded all their contracts with the United States federal government. The state of Arizona and each of its political subdivisions establishing themselves as freemen under the organic national constitution of the Republic of the United States of America. Consequently, they may be driving without registration, driver's license, or any other evidence of contract. Because many law enforcement personnel may be unaware of the contractual nature of auto registration and driver's licenses, it is conceivable that this situation may lead to confrontation between individuals and law enforcement personnel. I urge you to inform yourself and your personnel about this matter as soon as possible. If you would like to be briefed by someone knowledgeable on the subject, please contact me.
Wow, amazing. Okay.
In the meantime, in as much as this procedure is entirely appropriate when properly carried out, I would like to be personally notified of every such instance of confrontation, in order that the persons involved in the public officials involved, may be appraised to the correct procedure and the appropriateness of their action on the part of each concerned. Wow. And I'm gonna leave that a minute there, and then I'm gonna stop the sharing, and then I'm gonna show you a second source. And when you have two sources, like two autographs, you have a certification on a claim.
Okay, so do you want to stop sharing now, or you want to show another thing?
Yeah, I'm going to stop here.
Okay.
I'm sitting here. This is a manual, and if you look closely, it says...
Can you lift it? Can you lift it? Yeah, lift it up a bit. More. Lift it up. Higher. Yeah, like that. So consular notification and access. What's that?
This is a manual. That's the manual he's talking about. And you can't see it now because of the background. But down here it says this is a training manual to public law enforcement. But that's not important. The releasing party here is that symbol here. And this is the United States State Department. That is the publication coming from the United States Department of State. That's this logo here.
Yeah.
This is available in the public domain too. Like the other document I should show you comes from a state senator. And in here, there's even examples of how travel documents have to look if you're not contracting with the state.
Amazing.
So this is not, I'm not making this up. This is publicly available.
Yeah. Okay. So how about your private nation, currency, and solvency?
Right. So I found out, and many people right now are talking about becoming state national. And there are many people out there that says you can't change your status because of blah, 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 and all this. And they're saying it's not possible to become state national. But actually, this document talks about state nationals, and I have other documents that say the same. In the United States Code, there's actually under Title 8, it's called the definitions, and there you can find the references to the fact that you can choose between a state citizen or a state national.
What's the difference?
The difference is a citizen, as the word says, city is a city, a big place with a lot of people. Sen means a servant of. And you know, a city has a local government, and you are a servant of that government. So you're contracting with the government if you call yourself a citizen.
Mm-hmm. And a national?
So I was speaking a lot around to find the certification of this. And in the United Nations definitions of their charter, you find the definition of what a nation is. And I'm just going to give you the short part of it. It needs a land, it needs people, and it needs government. So you have a land because you have this body. It comes from the land. It's your land. People, it says one or more people in the definition. I am one people. And you have to have a government. What is a government? That is to have a faculty that have the ability to know right from wrong. Those three, you are a tripartite because you're a body, you have a mind, and you're one of the people.
So you are a nation?
Every man and woman living, if they want to, they go under the definition of what is a nation.
So you're not going to register as a national of the United Kingdom. You are registering as a nation called Henrik-Kromann.
Actually, what I do is I send a notification to the state secretary of the country that I'm in, and this is a document prepared here. This is called Act of State, and
yes.
it details exactly what Denmark is. It's a collection of islands, and it basically gives them the instruction to please correct your mistake in your IT system, that I'm not a citizen, I'm not a person, and I'm definitely not a taxpayer.
So what are you? So you're asking them to change it to what?
So I changed it to Danish national. But then I also...
that's what you said here. Native-born Danish state national man. Aha. So basically you're saying I am a nation that lives and walks around another alleged nation, which is a greater nation called Denmark.
I walk on the natural territory known as Denmark.
Yes.
Because territory is land. Borders are fiction. But land is not fiction. So I walk this land that my ancestors walked here, which is why I'm an original.
And they called it Denmark back then.
Born. Yes, because of ancient times, it's been known as Denmark.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So I'm describing this territory here, known as Denmark, is where I am from. I'm natively born. I'm Danish. state national.
I see. Okay,
because
brilliant.
of the definitions.
And what's the purpose of it? Why would you want to do that? Again, is that part of you? Well, you tell me. Why are you doing? Why did you do that? What did that achieve?
Okay, so I'm not a citizen, which means I'm not under the laws of the Danish state, neither local, state, or even federal. Every government comes in three, like it says on the front page of this document from the State Department. Any local, state, and federal, that's government is always coming three. So I am my own nation.
Yeah.
That means I am my own sovereign man, if you want. I live under common law, do no harm, have a right to travel, take care of my business, my property, my family, and I'm under common law of the land.
So,
not according to state legal fiction statutes.
okay, so does that actually mean that you have managed to detach yourself from the matrix? Have you exited the matrix or whatever, or the system, and now you are recognized as a national free man under common law, blah, blah, blah? They can't do anything to you anymore?
Well, recognizing or being recognized, it's not something that happens automatically. Some realize it, some know it, but some, you will meet a cop that is in a bad mood and he'll say, I'm the law. It's...
What about income tax?
There are people that needs to know this, and I'm awaiting some documents from the Danish State Department. This is my own private nation ID that was certified and authorized by the United States State Department back in 2016. So I have the credentialing and I have the notification, but you won't get a gold medal. You're not going to win the Olympics because you do these steps and you know yourself, who you are, where you come from, what law is. It's something between you and yourself that you know.
I see. But what about tax? I know some people in England manage to detach themselves or delete themselves off the income tax registry, and they were actually sent back their tax number, and they don't have to pay tax, and they were literally deleted off the system. They managed to get... Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Well, you can't actually technically delete your Social Security account because it's not you that created it. It's under the United Nations. It's not under the Danish state, or it's managed by IMF and the Federal Reserve.
Really? Even the Israeli ID numbers?
Every Social Security number in the world. If your nation of Israel is part of the United Nations, yes.
Yep.
This all came into effect around the end of the Second World War, 50s and 60s. Denmark ratified the Covenant of International Political and Civil Rights in 1972. So we came in a little bit late in this country. I don't know about Israel. I don't know when and where, but if you have a Social Security number, you have an account with the United Nations and they own it. So there is an account there, and there was put money in there, and you are the surety of that whole thing, which is your estate. And you got that when you were a minor because you weren't adult enough. So we call that your minor estate. So in the status correction process, you go to the point where you can actually claim your minor estate. And I'm working on that step right now. But I do have my definitions on the national. I have the documentations. And the last thing we do is we create our own trust because, again, the United Nations created a trust. They used your name as the name of the trust. It's like a corporation.
Yeah.
And everything in there, they own it. But you own 50% of it in a corporate, in a business partner scenario that you can claim actually by doing the proper documentation.
Good luck claiming that.
So what we do is we create our own trusts and we use actual lawful money, and we create a bond of possessing lawful money, and that makes you solvent. Because you now have real money, lawful money in the system. Because the system operates, there's two worlds, like law and legal. There's a fiction, and then there's a real lawful money, which is actual substance, which is silver or gold. And so when you operate as a private nation, your documents, you don't use the currency of the fiction, you use silver or gold. In your claims. If you're using currency of the United States, then that contract falls under United States jurisdiction.
Okay, I heard something that we're all insolvent, like we all have debts to the system because we are legal fiction and all that, and basically what you're doing...
That's because in 1933, the silver and gold was taken out of the money system and was replaced with paper. And because there was no more money in the system, they had to come up with a way how do we pay each other. And they created a legal fiction called Uniform Commercial Code, UCC.
Let's talk about that.
Yes. So what happened was...
UCC, where does it come from and what does it mean and how does it work? Please.
Okay. Because the money was taken out of the system, or the commodity, you can say, the silver and gold, which is property coming from the earth that we own because we've been given that by birthright. So that is exchanged with paper money. So paper money cannot be under law. So they had to create their own law, and he who creates something also owns it. So the Vatican created a corporation that was called Unidroit, that is called Unidroit. You can go to their website and you can see under members all the countries that joined Unidroit, and the Holy See is in there too, which is the first corporation. It's Corporation Soul. The first one, it was the Catholic Church, and the second one was the Crown Corporation. And they're all part of Unidroit. And Unidroit is a corporation and a collection of countries that sat down and wrote the codes called Uniform Commercial Codes that was going to control all commerce on Earth without physical money, but with paper instruments. So that's what the Uniform Commercial Code is. And you can find it.
Is it like a long series of books, or is it just one sentence that's saying we are going to do this?
It's a book like the Bible. I have it here on my shelf here. It's like a dictionary like this big.
And what is it about? It defines the way paper money will be handled, or what?
It defines contracts. It defines anything to do that controls commerce. And commerce is really claims and liens and levies on property. So you borrow some money and you get a piece of paper that is like, the collateral for your property. And then it's really that piece of paper. And everyone is asking me, so why is all this document so important? Because a document decides whether or not you live in your house, someone else lives in your house.
Yeah.
It governs the one in the castle lives there, or the one that cleans it.
I see. Okay, so that's UCC. I just want to try and squeeze a few more questions in because we've been talking for over an hour now. So how about if you could tell us about common law with John Smith? Did you say that before? I think we mentioned that, didn't we?
Yes.
So we could.
So in a couple of years ago, I was researching all this stuff. I had a friend, he was in trouble with some property, and he said, "Can I help him?" And I was in a student group with the Miller Tricks and Traps, and one of the guys had come across common law, so I checked it out, and I contacted them that I had this case, and I did some court cases up in Norway. And I used common law, and I used something called void orders, and got some experience with that. I got into the paperwork of it. We had a lot of resistance back then from Norway, and we didn't have the, expected results. because I didn't have the knowledge I have today, and the knowledge wasn't in common law court either. They came with register your birth, take the fiction, Strawman, and all that. But really, when I was digging into this, I didn't see that the lawful foundation was there for that. They do have a book of deeds, and that really means a deed is a document that tells that a property has changed ownership from one party to another. That's what a deed is. So when you put your birth into the book of deeds, you're basically saying, I was a property of state, now I am not a property of state any longer. So technically you could say it's proper and it's correct, but there are other challenges, and that's why I have joined, and a group of Danish people have joined this Republic of Canada, which is a common law republic from 2015. And they have established a grand jury and a republic, like the United States used to be a republic. That means a government by the people, like, you know, the United States Constitution says. So they are in Canada, they are building their republic, and we are sort of also in that process right now, finding the people, forming the documents, getting, you know, orchestrated and organized, so that our heirs to our lives and our property have something different than a state of tricks and traps and fiction and deception and fraud and
crazy. Right. So maybe to wrap things up, you could tell us, what is your vision? I mean, where do you want all this to go? I mean, eventually, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now, where do you see yourself?
I'm doing what I'm doing right now. I left the IT industry. I'm still playing with that a little bit, but I'm doing this because this is what I want to do, and I want to leave a world to my daughter. She's 13. I want to leave a better world to her, where she's not born into and growing up as a slave of tax system or tax systems. So there has to be, and I'm not at war with the state. I am simply just saying, I just want to do my own thing over here. You can do your thing over there. Okay, this flag behind me is the International Civil Peace flag. And that's why I have it there, because I am in peace, not at war. And if they want to come attack, then we will defend ourselves in the realms of paper, of course. So yeah, my daughter will grow up in a world where there will be a choice. If she want to be the state or she want to be the republic, there should be that choice. So that's why I'm doing this.
Fair enough. That's a good cause indeed. Shrinkster, do you have anything to add?
Looking forward to see more and more. I'd like to be clear on more educational information about this topic, as I believe more than just people who pay taxes should know it, but also people who work for the government should know it, because they are having it from all directions in karma.
Actually, if you work for government and you're paid by government funds, you're taxable, but only those people. And I don't work for the government, so I don't see a paycheck in my mailbox. So, you know, I'm not taxable, tax liable anyway. So yes, education is the only way forward. And I will be glad to come back for a follow-up with new questions, and I can show you more stuff that I'm not making this up. And it's been going on, like you can see, 1985. More people need to know this. That's also why I agreed to make this video, because it can reach a bigger audience. And it's not rocket science. But do know what you're doing, and do make sure you have, you know, check the road up ahead before you drive 100 miles an hour, because you will crash. And when you do crash, you do burn. And the system really doesn't care about us. They're only using us to make money off. We are being traded from cradle to grave under the old system. And the birth certificate is the proof of that because it's a bond. So what we do in the status correction that I showed you, we basically take the birth certificate and send it back. Thank you very much for having had the honors, but now it's yours. And please correct all your mistakes in your system. So it's an honorable way to say thank you very much, but I'm not interested in being part of it. And if enough people do that, then they're not going to have any more clients or customers, and they're going to have to close up shop.
Which is exactly what it is. It's a shop. People believe in the religion of country or religion of politics or government, however you call it.
Yes.
When it's a bluff, it's just a shop.
Yes. It's just a shop.
Yep.
And you are the product.
Yeah. And I do not consent.
Yeah.
Amazing. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Henrik, absolutely fascinating to talk to you and listen to you. And for that, I would like to say to you, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. And we shall definitely see you again. And thank you, Schwingster, as well. Good luck to all of us and to you, our lovely audience. All of Henrik's details are going to be shown underneath the interview so that you can contact him if you wish. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for watching wearefree.tv.